It never fail. You never fail. I know the feeling fades, but you never fail. You never fail. You never fail. I know the feeling fades, but you never fail. You never fail. You never fail. I know the feeling fades, but you never fail. You never fail. You never fail.
Yeah, my daddy seen him, my mama seen him, grandmama seen him, my auntie seen him, my daughter seen him. Tears of the generation, they drop on the mausoleum. Steps in this warfare like the sands of the Coliseum. Can't trust my emotions, feelings coming, then feelings go. Searching for a sign because we buy when they sell us hope. Looking beyond the stars through the lens of a telescope. We really want a genie, not a God that'll tell us no. Think about it, if we could control God, we would string.
All right, we're live. We're here. Some of y'all probably thought, as y'all listening to that maybe Truth wasn't going to show up or we weren't going to show up. But nah, we're here, man. Truth, what's good, brother?
What's up? What's up?
It's good to see you.
Good to see your face, bro. Yes, sir.
You too, brother. You too, brother. You got the COVID-19 grizzly on. I see.
I got the Uncle Denzel mustache coming in. I'm gonna just let it go, bro. I'm letting it go.
Like I was telling you, man, loading up. So many people I'm on Zoom calls with or whatever, man, are just letting themselves just grow. But it's so funny to me too, because I don't know about you, man. One of the things I love is Carol DeWick's work when she talks about growth mindset. You know what I mean? Limitations versus growth mindset. And one of the things you can do in a time like this is you can contract or you can grow. Yeah, I mean, it's not just a right answer. You can contract or you can grow. You do what I'm saying? And I think some of that is symbolic of people just saying, you know what I mean? This is a time, this is a season to see what's coming for me, what God has for me. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I feel like this is a window, you know. I was telling somebody earlier today that, you know, time is very important. That seems like, you know, something we would all just kind of know. That just seems like, as a, you know, everybody knows that already. Like, why are you telling me that? But I think just in terms of how we value time, our relationship with time, you know, God is always kind of, he says for everything there's a season. So what that tells us is that there's always a window. Even when Jesus came, he said, now is the time of visitation. In other words, if you miss this window, you miss me. You miss the moment that the Messiah came to earth. If you miss this moment, now is the time of visitation. And the day that you hear his voice, harden not your heart. You see what I mean? You know, the Bible says, and my spirit will not strive with you always, because there was a 120-year window there. So I just think that we have these themes throughout the scriptures that help us to understand that, you know, the events of our lives are time sensitive, and what we do with that time is what is most important. I tell people all the time, you know, we say time heals all wounds, and I tell them not necessarily. What we do within the time that we have is what determines whether or not those wounds will be healed. If I go to counseling, that will determine whether or not those wounds will be healed. Right. Otherwise, I turn out. Then the reason why we know that is because we have 60, 70-year-old people that are still bitter, full of anger, full of hatred. That's a key indicator that time in and of itself has no inherent power, but what you do with it is what matters most. And so I've been thinking a lot about just making sure that I maximize this time, make the most of this window. This is a critical window. If I binge watch all day, my favorite Netflix, if I scroll all day, I'm going to miss it. And I don't want to miss it. So yeah, that's where I've been, bro.
Bro, like we jump right in, man. Like you know, last time we've seen each other, man, it's been at least 5-7 years, man.
Yeah, bro, it's been a minute.
Time I saw you. Yeah. All right, so let me step back, man. First of all, we just jumped in, man. For the benefit of folks who are joining this conversation, first of all, let me just say this: this is the truth. Let me introduce you properly. His government name is Emmanuel Lee Lambert Jr. Okay.
Yeah. Shout out to mom and dad.
Right. He's a graduate of Cairn University, formerly Philadelphia Biblical University. We used to call it PBU up in the Philly area. Stella Award for his album The Faith back in 2007. He's been on BET Lift Every Voice. He's been on Still Roots, Mixed Masters Lounge, Relevation TV. He's been on Bobby Jones Gospel, been with the likes of Kirk Franklin, Source Magazines. Where hasn't he been? But most importantly, he's been continuing to serve the Lord. In 2009, he released his fourth album, The Big Picture, which features collaborations with Kirk and Trip Lee and Ty Tribbett. That project hit #1 on iTunes Christian Gospel chart the day it came out. Also reaching #1 on the CMTA R&B and hip hop chart. So I just want to make sure people understand, man, the road you've been on for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I was like, looking back, thinking like, yo, 20 years, are you kidding me? And it made me think about one of the first times, I think it was one of the first times I met you and had a chance to just like see you minister, man. It was, I don't know if you're going to remember this, in Philly, church. Yeah. I think it was Lehigh Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And this was before you sound, okay, I'm being told my mic needs to be a little louder. Hopefully that's better.
Oh, that's good. Am I cool? Can you hear me?
Y'all hear the truth okay? I guess so. They only asked for me. Okay, so I need to be a little louder. But
you recording this?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Sweet.
Yeah. So we were at a church in Philly on, I think, Lehigh Avenue. And it was myself, you, probably Baradox, Judah Priest, some other cats. And you did this song called, I don't know if you can remember this, John, Paul.
Oh my Lord. Paul Simmons. Paul Simmons.
Paul Simmons. You remember that?
I knew this cat named Paul Simmons.
Yes, man.
He caused friction everywhere he went. Yeah.
Yes.
Paul liked the song Trash a lot. Oh my gosh.
Yes, man. You did that, Jay Paul.
That was one of Ambassador's favorites.
Yo, I was like, because I was trying to think, I was like, yo, man, I've known so many truth joints. So that was like one of the first moments I remember. And then it was a couple years later. This was a moment for me, man. I'm actually check it out. Now, I know you don't like to go too far back in history, bro, but you're gonna have to give your brother some leeway for a second.
I'm gonna give you your moment, bro.
This was a moment because hold up, I'm gonna set the scene, and if you remember, don't tell me you remember. Don't say what it is.
Okay.
Just, you can tell me you remember. Don't say what it is. It was probably 2000 or 2001, and at this particular event, there were a couple moments at this event. Swift had a breakout moment. And matter of fact, I think he threw up right before that breakout moment on stage. I think that same year was the first year we saw Mark of the East and Corey Red and Precise.
Wow.
I think it was that same year. They first, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
This was the song you did.
Here we go again, y'all.
Now, for y'all who don't know, I just need y'all to listen to a minute of the lyrics on this joint.
I got a 5, bro.
Which represents the authority that he has in heaven, on earth, and in hell below. He's the king who's seated on the throne of gems and sapphire, who will endure forever. And as long as his throne endures, so will we keep it going. That's the truth, y'all. Yeah. I like that. Make room, y'all. You're the king. Come on. Jesus with more thrust than a rocket pack. He controls the winds and the waves like a stocky cat. Jesus, like Arnold, y'all heard him? I'll be back. And ain't no human being stopping that. Chop your gat, lock, stop, then cock it back. When God comes back, ain't no time to stop and chat. Stop in your tracks. God is love, but God gon' snap. When his mercy is exhausted like he ain't got a nap. Plenty alternatives, why choose godless rap? Why does it matter whether or not God is black? His blood was red.
Brother, when you came out with that joint, hold up. Oh, my bad. I had to mute you for a second. Wait,
I said it's still smacking.
It's still smacking, bro.
That boy's still smacking.
Still smacking.
Like the Red Seas till we die to sin. Lift the Christ, just to rise again. It's God then. Got alone with God and them. Stop the press.
Stop the hey. Chris, yeah. Rocket. Yeah. On the list. Yeah. Saves like you for less. Yeah. Props and fame. What? I rock the hey. Pocket change. Dollar sign.
Heaven and hell, see that's the bottom line.
Bottom line.
Christ the day before you're out of time.
Out of town.
I think that was 2000, 2001. Something like that.
Yeah, so I dropped the EP. It was 2000, 4 years before I signed with the Cross Movement.
Bro, we were
2000.
I remember this, man. Picturesque. Brother E or any of them were on, man. Remember we in the Bronx on that street in front of Salem Coffee House.
Oh wow!
Remember, right? Because it was just in a wave of
remember that
down that street.
I remember that,
and I remember when that joint dropped, you just saw like a wave of cats down the street. I mean, that was when we came up to Rap Fest. Like you just
full
block. Remember? I mean, we just
I remember those were the golden years,
bro.
Yeah. Bro. That's crazy, bro. I had to bring memory lane, bro.
That one out, man. So now, man, given the stretch, man, and all that you've been doing. When somebody comes to you now and says, the typical man, particularly as men, when people meet us, right? First thing is, what's your name? What do you do? When people ask you, what do you do? What's your response?
Yeah. It depends who asks me.
Yeah.
Because I'm moving different circles, and my response is generally contextualized. So depending upon what mood I'm in and who I'm talking to determines how I respond. Because honestly, if I tell them that I'm a Christian artist, this is the mood I'm in part. If I tell them I'm a Christian artist, that's naturally going to lead to a certain type of conversation. So sometimes I avoid that just to avoid the conversation. And other times I do it based on who I'm talking to. So if I'm, sitting first class with, the CEO of Google, I tell them that I'm a CEO of an entertainment company, which I am.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So really, it just depends on who I'm talking to. But if I'm talking to just a couple dudes, I tell them I rap. You know what I mean? Dudes that I need to connect with, and that's a bridge. I tell them I rap, and you know what I'm saying. So my answers are generally contextualized.
Gotcha. How did this all get started for you, man?
You know what, man? I stumbled onto this. This was not in the cards for me. It was not a desire of mine. I wasn't allowed to listen to hip hop or R&B growing up in a Christian home. I grew up on Shirley Caesar, the Winans Commission, B.J. Thomas, and I actually developed an appetite for gospel music. Kind of growing up as a Christian in the church, ended up playing drums, so full out musician. I was living the musician's life through and through, 100%. Actually, hip hop was not even my preferred genre of music. I used to think that hip hop was sad. When I would hear, because there was an era, like the era of the jazz sample, was like depressing to me, like Far Side, and like that was like, no, this is so depressing. This is making me sad. So I really wasn't into hip hop. And then one day, a friend of mine, his name is T-Wise, you know him.
Yep.
He and I were actually in the basement because Christian hip hop was just beginning to kind of surge. And when it first started, there was just like mainstream hip hop, and it was a little cheesy. And so a friend of mine, T-Wise, and I were like in the basement one night. We were just like poking some light fun at Christian rappers. Like, yeah, they be like. And we was like, imitating them. And while we were doing it, because we were actually rapping, like, yeah, they be like, the capers, we just be like, so we just kind of like, but while we were doing it, both of us were thinking to ourselves, but neither of us said out loud, bro, you sound kind of dope. Because we were just making fun of it, playing around. But as we were doing it, it's like it was coming together. So I was thinking to myself, yo, you actually don't sound half bad. He was thinking that to himself, but we just didn't know that. So he went home that night, hopped on the phone with him. And I was like, no, he was like, yo, bro, I think I just wrote my first Christian rap. I was like, bro, me too, bro. And so I was like, listen. I was like, this is when Das Effects came out. So I was like, I think he did what David did when he dissed the devil, like bam, bam, like pebbles. I dig hoes with shovels. That was my first few lines. I was doing that whole thing. He gave me his, and then we was like, yo, let's form a group. It all happened like super fast.
Right.
And so people started kind of knowing us to be the group that we were. We were the chosen one. And our pastor at the time, Pastor Reed, asked us to perform at the church. We performed at a lawn service and a tent meeting. I did the whole thing. I had on the khakis with the crease down the middle. You know what I'm saying? I had on my button up polo with the collar pop, and I had on some church shoes, like the shoe boots, and then I had my khakis rolled up at the bottom, and I did the whole performance with my eyes closed because I was petrified. And when we were done, man, like the response was like overwhelming. We just had this overwhelming response of people like, what was that? Come do that for our church. Come do that for our kids. Come do that. And that turned into us kind of hitting Philly everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Every church, every youth group in Philly. And then it went from Philly to Jersey, Philly, Jersey, Delaware, Philly, Jersey, Delaware, DC, Philly, Jersey, Delaware, DC, VA. And from the rest from there is kind of history. So that's how I got started.
What church was that? That's
Sharon Baptist.
Sharon. Yeah.
Sharon Baptist. Yeah. That's where my roots are. It was heavy there. Ambassador was there, Tonic was there, True Life was there, me, T-Wise. Yeah, everybody was there, bro.
So y'all progressive, man. Our church, we were years after y'all before I passed away. Any rap in the pool.
Oh, any of it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah.
So
for sure.
So for you, as you've, again, 20 years in this, man, I think of like, you look at other genres, rock, you name it. All of them have had their different progressions and evolutions, right? There's different cycles. When you think about then and, entering and some of the things the challenges you had to go through, how would you describe what the challenges were then? Some of the things you had the barriers you had to break through to kind of get some progress going in your career.
You know what? I didn't have any barriers to break through. Really? No. I was I reaped the benefits of the cross movement, bearing all the load of criticisms and cynicism and skepticism, and you know what I'm saying? Cross movement was the group that had to endure the pastor coming off of the pulpit with the communion cross in their back saying no, none of that secular music in my church. Like, they had to bear that brunt. Even when G. Craig Lewis kind of hit the scene, cross movement had to bear up under that even more than I did. So I've always kind of been, cross movement, they really just bore the brunt of all the shots. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They absorbed all the negative, reaction and response and the confusion surrounding whether or not rap is a viable tool for me in the ministry or whatever. They absorbed all of that. And I think they did a masterful job at edutaining, really bridging the gap between cultures, bridging the generational gaps, bridging cultural gaps, being scholarly, yet urban, moving in seminarian circles, yet still, being at the storefront church on 40th and Poplar, and then, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So they did a masterful job of being very sensitive to their audience, understanding their role as urban missionaries. And so the artists like Flame and myself and Lecrae and Trip and Shot, we kind of were just able to kind of, reap the what's what I'm looking for? is that we're going to reap the benefits of reap the benefits of their you know what I'm saying, the all the wars that they had to fight. So I wouldn't say I had any wars, bro. Like I slid in nice and easy, and then for me, it was like I slid in with cross movement. They have bore the brunt of all the ridicule, and so I came in on their kind of coattails. I had their endorsement. That was like a Jay-Z endorsement back then. And so that was straight. And then I went from a cross movement endorsement to a Kirk Franklin endorsement.
Right.
So honestly, I never really had any issues. I never really had any issues early on in my career. I never had to fight to kind of get my foot in the door or anything like that. I was a fly on the wall, kind of watching them fight those wars and reaping the benefits of it.
I mean, you make so many good points that I didn't even really think about, man, because back then, when you would talk with Wells or Deuce or any of them, not that they would necessarily put it out all in front of you, but you would hear some of the conversations like, they're putting together a board for the nonprofit, and you're like, that's a board. Why do you need a board? You know what I'm saying, for the ministry?
Yeah.
Right. You're like, oh, okay. Seeking godly counsel. That makes sense. Right. And then Deuce like, well, he's going to go get, he's going to seminary. Right. He feels that's a relevant part of the whole. So you just, to your point, all these different things they were lining up and setting up that you were watching that whole structure come together. That man paid so many people over time.
Yeah.
I mean,
and we followed in a lot of their footsteps.
Yeah.
Even Reach there was Reach Records. Right. Just like there was Cross Movement Records, and there was Reach Life, just like there was Cross Movement Ministries. Cross Movement Ministries was the nonprofit. Cross Movement Records was the for-profit. Reach Life was the nonprofit. Right. Reach Records was the for-profit. This is a part of the history that we don't hear much of, but they are responsible to a large degree for many of today's heroes. Yeah.
So how did, to your point, you just brought this up as a part of that journey. How did the relationship with Kirk materialize?
You know what? Interestingly enough, he actually, Deuce was in Dallas with Kirk at the time. Deuce and Kirk were really tight at the time. Deuce was they both went to OCBF, that's Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship, past Dr. Tony Evans Church. Deuce was in seminary in Dallas. And Kirk is a low-key theologian. He's low-key. He makes music for the soul and songs for the heart. So sometimes you can miss it.
Right.
But Kirk's a low-key theologian, and he's a low-key apologist as well. And so he's always been drawn to thinkers, which is, a large part of why he was drawn to Dr. Tony Evans.
Right.
So he was drawn to Ambassador. Him and Ambassador started building. And at the time, a Moment of Truth dropped. And once Moment of Truth came out, I didn't know Kirk at all at that point. I just would hear Deuce talk about him a lot. And once Moment of Truth came out, I got a phone call from Kirk, and I missed it. So Deuce called me and was like, bro, Kirk just tried to call you. He's flipping over your album. I was like, for real? Wow, that's crazy, bro. So that was that. That was the end of it. And after that, I actually had to do a show at OCBF. At the time, this was later in the year. At the time, he was working on the Passion, the Passion of the Christ soundtrack. And he's like, come to the studio. Come to the studio. So he had Deuce tell me to come to the studio. And so I walked up in there. I got there probably around midnight. Sorry, got there around midnight. Kirk is strong too. He's small, but he's strong. So he ran up to me, grabbed my waist, lifted me off the ground, threw me on the couch. He's that guy. He's going crazy, right? And that night, that was awesome. The thing that actually blew my mind the worst that night, the most that night, was not that moment. That was awesome, obviously, growing up on Kirk Franklin, and now, he being a fan of my music.
Crazy.
But he was asking for my input on the Passion of the Christ soundtrack. What you think? What you think? Okay. And I actually had input because I'm a musician too. Right. So I was like, yo, this is crazy. from that point forward, we began to, we went actually that night, we went out to to Denny's, and we just talked and ate till about 4:00 in the morning. And when the night was over, he was like, let me give you the bat phone. So from that point forward, man, and to this day, that's my heart, bro. You know what I mean? Like, when we talk, we talk 6-7 hours at a time. Like, it's just so much, there's so much exchanging of ideas and meeting of the minds and challenging each other. Right. And that's my bro. So yeah.
That's what's up, man. That's
what's up. Yeah.
So you've learned a lot because you kind of traverse CHH gospel and have a lot of things. What are some of the skills, man, that you now see as critical? You know what I mean? The entrepreneurial skills or whatever skills, if you're advising people who are entering this thing, you know what I mean? And they come, because a lot of people enter, Christian hip hop and they think, hey, man, I'm going to drop this single. So make sure I put it through TuneCore and it's on every streaming device or network, whatever you want to call it, right? And I'm good. For sure. Right? So talk about what you see from your learnings.
For sure. Well, that's obviously a multi-layered question, but I would say number one, it's important that you manage your expectations coming into this, because I think, to your point, there's a lot of assumptions that that we have naturally. You know what I mean? Like you said, I'm gonna drop this single. You're projecting what it's going to do, how people will respond. And it's one thing to hope for that. It's another thing to assume that it will be. And because when you assume that it will be what you project, that's when you set yourself up for great disappointment. Because the truth of the matter is that it is like anything else. It takes a lot of work. You know what I mean? You have to truly be invested. So I would say manage your expectations. I think expectations oftentimes have a lot to do with point of reference, though. You see, because if whoever I'm using as a point of reference will oftentimes determine what my expectations will be. You see what I mean? So if I'm using Stephen Malcolm, one of our newer guys, they were brothers killing it. Or if somebody's using me as a point of reference, or somebody's using Lecrae, or somebody's using Flame, or somebody's using Derek Minor as a point of reference. That will determine, and they base their expectation of what should happen for them, and what should happen for them is based on what the level of success that we've had. Again, that leaves them wide open for disappointment if it doesn't happen. Now, I'm not here to say that you shouldn't have a goal or that you shouldn't aspire to be anywhere in particular. I think, hey, if you like, I'm gonna do what Lecrae did. I'm gonna get on mainstream radio. I want to such and such and such, or I'm gonna do what Truth did. I'm gonna move in the gospel space. I'm gonna this, or I'm gonna do it. That's fine. I think you can have it. I have those expectations. I just think that you have to marry those expectations with a sober mind. You also have to marry those expectations with the possibility that that might not be true for you. You know what I'm saying? And you have to be okay with that. You have to wherewithal learn to be content with whatever your station. Listen, Paul the Apostle says, he talks about, when he's talking about the gifts, the gifts of the Spirit, he says, and the Holy Spirit has apportioned to all the gifts of the Spirit and granted them, each of them, a measure of grace. Yeah. You see, so everybody has a limitation. I tell my daughter, I don't tell my daughter she can be anything she wants to be. I don't believe that. Mm-hmm. I don't believe that, and I don't think she should believe that.
What do you say?
You can be many things you want to be. You cannot be anything you want to be, bro. I'm glad my mom and dad did not tell me I could be anything I wanted to be, because there's a lot of stuff that I might want to be that I don't have the capacity for. Mm-hmm. You see, and I think that sometimes, people come into this, and they have these grandiose, these visions of grandeur, and these grandiose kind of goals. And again, I'm not anti-goals. I hope people are understanding what I'm saying and put it in proper perspective. But I am saying that it's important to be sober. I think that's what it comes down to. Have your dreams, have your expectations, but make sure those expectations, those dreams, those aspirations are informed by a sober mind, which says, here's my desires, here's what I want to do, here's what I like to see, but I must leave room for the very real possibility that might not be the case. And watch this. It's not that success won't be the case. It's that your expectation, your point of reference for success won't be the case. Yeah. You see what I mean? Yeah. Right. Success will just look differently. You see what I mean? It just might not be the Grammys for you, but it might be the Kingdom Choice Awards, and that's fine. Absolutely. You see? So
we define it sometimes, man.
I think it's important.
Yeah.
I think, bro. I think that's important. So that's one thing that I would say to anybody that's kind of getting into this. And this is the last thing I want to say, Trig, then I'll shut up. But the last thing I want to say, bro, is that I also think that, for the past 7 to 10 years or so, we've been going through an identity crisis in Christian hip hop. I feel like it's kind of turning a corner now. But we really, really struggled with who am I? Like, I'm just saying the genre as a whole. Yeah. We've been trying to figure that out. Like, and I think that obviously the pendulum swung, which is historically, that's always been the case, right? That the pendulum swings far left and far right. It's very seldom that you find, people kind of land in the middle without swinging to extremes first. And so I think that with cross movement, obviously during their era, they established something. We talked about this on the podcast as well. But right, they established something they established this whole concept of Christ-centered, hip hop. They established God-centered, God-focused hip hop, theologically informed hip hop. Okay, and then the Reach Records guys, they kind of took that, ran with it, and then at some point they pivoted. Once they pivoted, they went kind of to the other extreme of that, which put the culture in a very weird space. Like, wait, which way? You know what I'm saying? Right. Now it put the culture in a weird space until pragmatism kicked in, and they saw the success of doing it Reach's way. And so naturally, they said what people do is they say, well, success is typically the best metric that we have in determining whether or not a thing is the right thing to do or not. So you see what I mean? So, right. So you had this huge kind of wave and, the Lecrae Reach kind of paradigm that was a paradigmatic shift that took place as a result. And then from there, we kind of started to it's been said that what leadership does in excess what leadership does in moderation, fellowship would do in excess. Yeah. So what happened is, Lecrae did what they did, and then the people that came behind them actually did a worse version of what they did. You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying what they did was bad. What I'm saying is that, right, that fellowship took it, and because they didn't have any teachers, they just were trying to they were taking stabs in the dark. You see what I'm saying? Until we kind of got to where we are now, which is things are kind of coming back to the center. Okay, so with that, I'm taking you the long way to say this. If you are an artist and you are considering kind of getting into this space, you're a Christian as well. You do not have to feel the weight of being explicitly Christ-centered in your music as a Christian who is an artist. Okay? All right. The reason why that's important to say, well, let me say this. You do not have to be explicitly Christ-centered in your music if you are a Christian that is an artist, but you do have to consider Christ in all of your music if you are a Christian who is an artist. Mm-hmm. you see that there? See, I think that was the missing piece in the conversation. Yeah. You see, nobody was ever saying don't be, that everybody had to be explicitly Christian in their music if they're Christians who are also artists. Yeah. But the missing piece of the conversation is, but you must always consider Christ if you are a Christian who is an artist. Because in considering Christ, what that does is it puts parameters around you so that you don't go as far. You see what I'm saying? As you follow me. Okay. But you absolutely do not. In fact, one of the things that Flame and I have been talking about, even in our podcast, is we actually need people that are out there that are not doing what we're doing. See, Flame and I, we're doing what we're doing because we're called. We can't help it. We've been branded. We're made men. Like, this is it. This is it. When I go to write something silly or simple, it just will not happen. It's going to come out prophetic, and it's just, and we've accepted that. But nobody has to feel the pressure of doing that, because they're Christian. In fact, we do need some people that are moving and navigating in those spaces where they're, where there are non-Christians and there are mainstream artists and there are mainstream, not just artists, but mainstream people, just your regular everyday citizens that work at CBS who just love good music and good art. And you do provide that. Again, as long as you consider Christ, because when you consider Christ, you're still doing it as unto his glory, even if it's not explicitly Christian. You see what I mean? Right. And if you're doing it unto his glory, you're not detracting from it. And that's the main thing. So those are the two things that I would say to artists. Manage your expectations. Make sure your expectations are informed by a mind of sobriety. And also I would also encourage you to not feel the pressure of having to be explicitly Christian if you are a Christian who is an artist, but rather consider Christ in all things if you are a Christian who is an artist.
Yeah. I mean, that was good, man. We unpacked that because, I mean, it's been such a weighty topic for such a long time. And I listened to that episode. I can't remember if it was episode 3 or 4, I think, of Complicated.
Yeah, I think it's 3. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you guys were unpacking it, I had to rewind it a couple times, man, because I kept getting interrupted. You know how you get interrupted? There's a lot of thoughts that you're going through. I want to get this whole thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one of the things there was, I can't remember if you guys have referred to this point of scripture or not, but it's not that, I can't remember the exact scripture, but it's not that some things are necessarily sinful, but they may not be profitable, right? That's right. With your point, right? That you don't necessarily have to have the lyrics laden with Christ-like lyrics. Yeah. Think about whether it's your actions, your behaviors, and all things are profitable.
Yeah.
As a Christian, you know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I think that we're in a culture of compartmentalization.
Yeah.
So naturally, we keep separating everything.
Right.
Our hip hop is over here. Our Jesus is over here. Our art is over here. Our finances are over here. And I think that the Christian worldview teaches that not even just that Jesus is first, but that Jesus is at the center.
Right.
So if you think of life kind of like in a graph or in a pie, we're not putting Christ in a slice. We're putting Christ at the center of it. So all things are kind of filtered, informed by, you see what I mean? His word, his truth, his heart, his love. And I think, so music is art is obviously no different. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge believer. And interestingly enough, we're set up as predominantly nonprofit, right? Holy Culture folds under the Quilling Solution, which is a 501(c) nonprofit. So at the end of the year, if anybody who's watching ever feels like they want to make a tax deductible donation, feel free. What we do is, curriculum for youth to help them fulfill their purpose, and Holy Coach is a brand that fits underneath that. And then I have another for-profit side, to make sure, we eat. And so, when I think about business skills too, because what you talked about was, man, like the first priority, right? Making sure you're staying on task with, almost, I'm gonna paraphrase a little bit, and if my paraphrasing is off, man, clean me up. But also what you said, finding success appropriately, setting the right expectations, because your frame of reference could be a little off, and what God's definition for success is for you may not be that frame of reference.
That's it. Bingo.
Straight up. Say, let's say it is, or let's say it's slightly to the right or left of that. There's still things you'll need to do, actions you'll need to take to make that material.
Absolutely.
Right. Faith and right. And so, I mean, you've been on at least 3 or 4 different labels, right? Cross Movement, Exist.
Yeah.
So forth. Now CEO of a label. You've been on different charts and all different places. Now from the on the other side of the ledger, if you will, maybe that's the wrong term, ledger, but now over to
I get it.
What are some of the entrepreneurial and business skills as well, man? About that you've whether it's been things of disappointment, man, I will not do that again, right? Or versa, I want to do much more of this. You do what I'm saying? What are some of the things that jump to your mind?
Yeah, there's a ton of things that I would do differently. I've like you said, I've been signed to 2. Actually, I've only been signed to 2 labels.
2 labels, okay.
Yeah, that's missing something.
Now your own label.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2 labels. Yeah. So there are some things I would have done differently. Things that I actually wish I would have known some years ago that I know now. That's just kind of like par for the course stuff. From an entrepreneurial vantage point, from a business standpoint, I was actually talking to a friend of mine today about the Meg Thee Stallion thing. What's the name? What's Joe Budden's thing? State of the Culture. Yeah, the State of the Culture. They were on there talking about, the Meg Thee Stallion contract, and she was fighting for, she's getting what 60%, and her label's getting 40%. And the question is, I think one of the things that Joe and Remy Ma was saying is like nobody. Well, no, not Joe and Remy Ma. Remy Ma and the other guy, I don't know his name, but they were saying like it's 2020. Nobody should be getting into bad deals, right? And I was talking to my business partner today because it's interesting. It's because it's so easy to say that from the outside in. Yeah. Because the truth of the matter is that in as much as that makes a whole lot of sense, like, and you would think we all know better by now. We've seen enough go wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've seen enough artists kick, scream, scratch, fight to get out of bad deals. We've seen amazing artists never get paid. You would think we know better by now. And I think, again, on paper, it all makes sense. In theory, it makes perfect sense. Yeah. But in real time, what ends up happening is, and I think this is a point that Remy Ma made, she said, a lot of these artists are coming from the bottom. So oftentimes they know it's not the best deal. But if you got somebody offering you 40 grand as an advance, you know what I'm saying? And you ain't never seen 4 grand before. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That 40 grand look like $1 million. You see? So one of the things that I think is a matter of conversation, and this is what we talk about today, my business partner and I, like, is there any such thing as a bad deal? Because bad deals are really kind of a relative term. It's really relative to the immediate need. You see what I mean? Now, granted, there are bad deals, absolutely. Right. But I think that it's important for the artist to always remember the reason for which they got into the deal to begin with. Because what happens is you end up bitter with the company that you signed with or the label that you signed with. You're mad at them 2 albums in when you're killing it and you're only getting 15%. But the reason why you signed that deal in the first place is because you needed the upfront money because your house was about to be foreclosed. You see what I mean? So the conversation actually becomes very interesting and multi-layered in that sense. And a lot of what we're talking through becomes really relative. You see what I mean? It's not so cookie cutter. So at any rate, I think that right now, if there's one thing that I would tell an artist from an entrepreneurial standpoint, thankfully we are able to eat off of our music. Thankfully, we have catalogs, and those it really does matter. I would say, in as much as it's possible, try to own your masters. I think that's important, not to sell your masters. And if you do, if somebody does buy your masters, make it for a limited amount of time. So I think that's important. You follow me? If you're going to sign a deal, even if you sign a bad deal because you needed the money up front, make it a 2-year deal so you're over it. sooner than later. But the one thing that I would say now, truth today, 20 plus years in it, is be sure to, and this is what we've been doing over the past 2 years, diversify. If there's anything that I can offer. Another thing my business partner and I have been talking about is the Black Swan theory, right? And the Black Swan theory is this idea that the general understanding on when you think about swans, you mostly think about white swans. You know, like when you think, if I say, what color is a swan? You're not going to say black. Right. You're going to say white, right? Because it seems like most swans are white, right? But there are actually black swans, right? So the Black Swan theory pretty much says that just because things are the way that they are for a specific amount of time doesn't mean that that's the way that they will always be. Right. You see what I mean? At some point, continue to look down the line of swans, you know, continue to look down the line of swans in the lake, and eventually you will run into a black one. You see, Corona is actually that. Corona is the black swan. It's the thing that made everything different than what we were all accustomed to. Yeah. You see, 9/11 was the black swan. It's the thing that made everything different than what we were accustomed to. And here's the thing that we're noticing. Nobody's ready. like this thing hit us, 9/11 hit us, we were not ready. You see what I mean? Yeah. We weren't prepared. So now we all scrambling, trying to figure out what are we to do now? You see what I mean? It's the Black Swan theory. We thought that things would always be the way they've been without any anticipation for a turn. At one point, MySpace was Facebook. Right. It was the white swan. True. You see what I mean? Absolutely. Technology today will not be what tomorrow will not be what it is today. Right. Facebook, Instagram, blah, blah. I'm not married to social media. Right. I'm not. You know why? Black Swan. I'm getting ready for the Black Swan. I'm getting ready for the next Corona. And I feel like that would be my word of encouragement to other artists to diversify so that you are prepared for a pivot. You're prepared for worst case scenarios. Yeah. You see what I mean? There's so much more I want to say about that. I want to talk about debt and money and all of that, but we could do that another time. But I just want to throw that principle out there. Absolutely. So that we don't marry, you know, things the way that they are, but rather think more future. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm diversifying so that
those are some good nuggets. And when you say diversifying, I assume you mean not just in your music and where your catalog goes, but even how you use yourself and all your resources.
That's right. How I'm using myself and all my resources. Yeah. Everything that is me, I want to be sure to fully maximize. Yeah. If I'm an apologist, fully maximize. If I'm an author, fully maximize. Absolutely. If I'm a podcaster, fully maximize. If I'm an artist, fully maximize. Listen, many of us are Swiss Army knives. We're not just one thing. Right. And we live in a culture of, and Flame and I talk about this all the time, and, you know, Western culture, everything is one or the other. You know, who wore it best? Who did it best? Who, you know what I'm saying? Like that's, you know what I'm saying? Top 5. You know what I'm saying? We love that. Right, you know what I'm saying? Right. You know, whereas in Eastern culture, everything is both hand. You know what I'm saying? So I think that we as Westerners, we naturally have that. What's my one thing? Even the way we talk about purpose, we like, you know, we prepare people for the one thing they do well. What's your thing? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And what we mean is, what's the one thing you see yourself doing in 5 years? That's a great. But many of us are Swiss Army knives. Many of us have a plethora of gifts and talents and abilities, and you know what I'm saying, and means by which we can express and even monetize those things. So, I don't want to keep going on, but that's kind of.
No, but for real, let's continue with this one for a minute, man, because I think I think it's so instructive, man, because with the youth program we do, you know, we for example, we did one of the pilots in Chicago at a charter school over on the west side, and I remember I think they were 8th graders, and you sit and start going through these conversations with them around their passion and purpose. You know what I mean? And in the workbook, I had 3 lines for them, right, to do it, right, not to isolate them to one. To your point, but before that, it was, can you start to write down bullets that speak to your talents and gifts, right? Let's take a step back and like, what do you mean talents and gifts? I'm like, well, all right, let's do it this way. I said, well, let's talk about your favorite superhero. And they were like, and one said, well, mine is I don't know. First of all, you know, 8th graders, I don't even think this conversation makes sense. So just ride with me. Okay. One said mine is Batman. It's okay. Other one Superman, Spider-Man, something. I said, well, let's talk about the normal storyline of what happens with superheroes. Now, understand, I'm used to having this conversation with adults. So I'm trying to figure out how to connect with these kids for real.
Yeah.
I'm Noit, bro.
2 minutes
session, I'm freaking out. Like, I'm used to adults. Yeah, I mean, now I gotta do this for these kids.
It's a different animal,
bro. Totally different, right? So I go, check it out. What's the normal storyline that happens? I said, you know, most superheroes accidentally trip up on their superpower. Something happens and they use it accidentally. They were like, true. And I said, and then what happens? They were like, well, they start to play with it a little bit. And I was like, right. They have fun. I said, and then what happens? They were like, well, they usually figure out why they have the superpower. I was like, purpose. Yeah. I was like, and then they were like, well, they got to figure out how to use it. Right. I was like, so all of them, they were like, yeah, because, you know, Superman does this, is that, and that. Then he figured out how to use it. Then, like,
that's good, bro.
Got Yoda and Yoga helps him to use it. And then Shazam, he's got this, that, and his friend helps him practice and use it. Okay. So if I tell you, as individual as your fingerprints, you've got superpowers. You may not have them yet, but you have them there for a purpose. And I'm going to be a Yoda. Are you in with me for this? They're like, yo, I'm in. Right?
Wow.
Back to your point of the frame of reference. To a frame of reference without, to me, having the talent and gift inventory is sometimes a part of that thing too.
That's good.
What you said, man, that really struck a chord for me is anytime you enter any business, let's not talk about music for a second. Let's talk about I don't know, man. You want to be in the restaurant industry, and you say, all right, I'm gonna go into restaurants and I'm just gonna be servers, but you really intend to be in this business for a long period of time, right? You would take a certain course of action to learn that whole business. You would say, all right, listen, whether I'm going to start out and be in a sous chef, bakery, but I'm trying to make it through this whole thing, and I want to get an understanding of how the whole thing works. So I'm intentional to understand how the whole thing works, right? And I would just say, you know, I would love to figure out how and I'm putting myself on the line here a little bit because I feel partially responsible as a part of this community, man, to figure out how we help people understand how the whole thing works. So they don't line up with 10% understanding. And then to your point, because I do believe it's a bad contract if you don't understand conceptually
what you're signed up for. That's
in other words, if you say, look, if you've got this extended belief in yourself and you say, let's just use numbers for a second. You're a $20,000 or $60,000 annual person, but you sign a contract that limits you to 10. Right. And at our ages, let's just say you're 30 or whatever, you got a little money in your 401k, equity in your home and whatnot. You could have said, well, I could take your contract or I can make the investment myself, because what you're going to do or not, I could get my own team. I could catch from Upwork or Fiverr. There's a lot of freelancers out here. And you know what? No disrespect intended. I'm gonna pull $10,000 out of a couple different places and put a plan, and that way I own it top to bottom. I'm accountable, I'm responsible, and I'm gonna run it this way. You know what I mean? And get with some good friends, set up an advisory board and a collective, and I'm gonna run it. We're gonna run it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Only point to what you were saying about the bad contract or not. I think it's only bad if you don't know what you signed up for.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
man.
Yeah, bro. It's a lot of moving parts with this part, but yeah,
for real. So to your point of one of the points you guys have been making a complicated ish too is the this continued discussion. I think the last discussion, man, about the application of scripture in your life and things like that, man. So talk about just even complicated this. How did that all start? Like where's because I know you're in South Carolina now. Where's he at?
Tampa.
He's in Tampa. Okay. So you guys got to go virtual too now. We're recording like everybody else.
Man, I'm flying back out there.
Are you? Okay.
If we decide, well, we already have so many that we recorded.
Yeah.
You know, we're good right now.
Okay.
But if it goes, depending on how long this goes, man, I don't want to do that thing virtual. I love our energy, bro.
Yeah, it's nice being in the room. I know I got some things coming up.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. So I went out there during Corona. We shot during Corona.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. I mean, just wipe everything down.
Yeah. It was cheap.
It's a little scary.
You had any seat you wanted, right?
Any seat I wanted, bro. Yeah, you get a flight for $1.99. Buy one, get one free.
I'm about to buy my Flavor Fest tickets now.
Get them now, bro.
$79. You know what I mean?
That's right, bro.
So what made you guys start that?
You know what, man? Flaming out. You know our history. That's one. So we got a lot of history. We got real relationship. We've been through some real wars together. Which obviously forges, a bond. And so I think that, that actually had a lot to do with it. When we were in California last year, we were in California together they were out there 2 weeks. I was there for like 4 days. Man, we just spent a ton of time together. And during our time together, we were just talking about let me go back. I started talking to Flame about, I think I was talking to him about writing some years ago, probably 5-6 years ago, maybe more, maybe longer. I was talking to him about writing. I always wanted us to do something together. So I've always been kind of pushing him like, bro, let's do this, let's do that. Just over the years, you know what I mean? Just like once every year and a half, we're having those conversations. And I think last year was just like that year where our relationship, just being on the battlefield together, being in that war together, just, made us airtight, made the relationship airtight. And we started talking more about, I started talking to him more about his voice.
Yeah. Because
I really felt like people were missing out. Like I was sitting there because people haven't heard from him in a while. You know what I'm saying? And not many have really had I've been saying the world hasn't had the opportunity to just hear the mind of Marcus Gray. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I'm sitting there, we in Cali together, we out to eat, we at the Airbnb, and we just up 2-3 in the morning. I'm listening to this dude like, bro, the world needs to hear you, dude. Like this cannot stay in this Airbnb. Yeah. So I think that so I feel like it was just kind of like kicking the ball up the field throughout the years. And then I went out to work on some music with him in December. And literally the first day I was there for probably like 4 or 5 days. First day I got there, we're sitting, we laughing, talking. And a couple hours into our time together, he starts to talk to me about, the podcast. Him and Crystal started talking to me about the podcast and their vision for it. And said that they, were kind of thinking about me as a co-host. And for me, I didn't even have to think twice about it. It was something that I felt like needed to happen anyway. I felt like the world needed to hear his voice. I felt like it was perfect timing. I felt like we're both thought leaders. And from that point forward, man, we just started. From that point forward, man, we just started. We just got right to it. Like the thing I love about how we did it, it was December we talked about it. January we shot. February we shot. Like not a lot of time lag.
I went right into it.
We just knew it was right, and we did it, and it's been super successful, and people are really as of probably three or so weeks ago, we got the congratulations. You have 7,500 downloads. And that's quite an accomplishment, for us. So we're excited about the future, about the possibilities, man. Like we love that people love how we're thinking, and we're just gonna keep talking out loud and see what happens.
Love it.
Yeah.
One of the things, we start to wrap up, man. I know we chewing up a lot of your time, man. Thanks for being here.
Man, you're good, bro. Hey, this is long overdue. We could do that.
I know, right? Like I said, get a chance to catch up.
For sure.
One of the things when we talked about, like I talked about some of your discography earlier, man, you've done a lot of collaborations.
Yeah.
Were they intentional or opportunistic? How do you think about collaborations?
At my core, I'm an artsy guy.
Mm-hmm.
So when I get into a creative space, it's about the integrity of the creation. Like that's you know what I'm saying? I like when I'm gonna create it, I might as well be like Pierre. I throw my scarf on and my hat.
One of the pictures you posted, that's exactly what it looked like. There's one picture when you were doing the vet, I was like, that brother is deep in there.
Yeah. I'm really a creative, bro. I'm like through. Like I take my craft, my art very serious. So when I'm working on a project, man, for me, it's about the integrity of the art first.
Yeah.
And so with that, once I'm working on a song, I don't create songs for artists. I create music, and then whoever kind of fits in there is who I go with.
Yeah.
Now, if we get to the end of a project and we're like, man, it really would be advantageous for us from an industry standpoint to get a feature on here in this space or from that space.
Mm-hmm.
We might do that, but for the most part, I don't really like to move like that. What I found, man, is features are overrated. That's why I'm like, I like features because I like features. Like I want the feature on the record because I want the feature on the record, and I think they fit and they'll make the song amazing. But my expectation for features, it's been long since I thought this will do it. Yeah, if I only get such and such, that'll do it. Right. If I get the CCM artist, that'll get no. It doesn't work that way, bro. It really doesn't. So maybe in the streaming space, it might help because people see names and they're like, oh, okay, well, I want to hear. So from a streaming standpoint, that might be the case. But yeah, that's pretty much how I go about features. I'm looking for who fits, who makes sense, who do I want to hear, who's on my bucket list. For example, on this new record I'm working on, I got Yolanda Adams. She's a bucket list for me.
Yeah.
That's auntie. You know what I'm saying? I got auntie. So, so that's, you see what I'm saying? That kind of stuff. That's bucket. So Yolanda's bucket list, Kim Burrell is bucket list.
Oh.
And so I'm working on getting her. I tried to get her twice. I don't think she liked the songs though. So I'm still working on her. So we'll get there though.
Holding on. I mean, Kim Burrell.
Hey, keep holding on, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
So one of the things I've noticed increasingly, man, from the last three projects, I can't remember the brother's name, Dr. What's the name you interviewed? And
Robbie Zacharias.
Yes. That project, and then the next two after that, that was right after that project, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, Chasing Ghosts, man, the increasing level of transparency and vulnerability. Man,
wow.
Just increasing levels of transparency and vulnerability.
Wow.
Putting your story front and center, sharing the ups and the downs.
Yeah.
Why is that so important to you, bro?
You know what? It's not that it's important to me. Okay. I literally feel like it's what comes to me. and I don't want to edit myself.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So you just let it flow. It just as you're.
That's it.
And I'm not taking it out. I'm just.
And I'm not gonna edit myself. That's it. You know what I'm saying? So it's out of the abundance of the heart. It's where I am in that moment, in that space, whatever space I'm in at that time. Obviously within reason. Again, we start with Christ as the being considered in all things, the glory of God. So, but yeah, man, I'm really just, I feel like what happens though, as a consequence, like from the whole truth, like you said, to chasing ghosts, some of the stuff in vet, I think what happens as a consequence is that, that my transparency or my vulnerability, it finds a way to resonate. It resonates with people. People find themselves in my story. Or find themselves in my struggle. And that's the beauty of art. People ask me all the time now, 20 plus years, how do you stay relevant? What do I tell them? I stay relevant by not trying to. That's the key to relevance for me. Because relevance, relevance is about scratching an itch. It's about, how is it that 13, 14, and 15-year-olds are holding up Bernie Sanders signs at the rally? Bernie ain't trying to be relevant, yet he is.
Right.
Former President Barack Obama, mom jeans and a white polo with Asics on, with white Asics. He was not trying to be cool, bro.
Right. You had to put him out there, the white Asics.
With the white Asics. But he scratched an itch.
Yes, man. Yes.
You see, Bernie scratched an itch.
Yes.
That's how a 60, 70, 80-year-old man can be. Donald Trump, President Trump, scratches an itch. I'm not advocating for him either way. I'm saying, as a matter of fact, he scratches an itch.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Absolutely.
He touches a real place for people somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key, man. Like, if I start to edit myself and throw stuff away because it's, too vulnerable or I feel too exposed, that's when I become irrelevant.
Yeah. Man, that's good, bro.
Yeah,
it's so good because one of the podcasts I have a podcast called The Quilling Solution. And a conversation I had with someone who's a executive coach. I do some executive coaching too, but she does as well. And one of the things she talked about, particularly in this moment, was the strength of vulnerability. Particularly as leaders, because one of the things that happens as leaders is influence outcomes, and that's what's expected. To show up and drive things and influence outcomes. But one of the things that often happens too is they feel like they have to show up looking bulletproof, right? And the real strength is actually saying, well, nah, not so much. You know what I'm saying? I've got some similar concerns too. There's a lot of uncertainty. I've got less control than before, but I'm planning for that, right? I'm trying to work for the unplannable, right? I'm trying to work through it with you as a collective, and that's where the power is, and we know the power rests in Christ, of course, but that vulnerability across. I mean, one of the songs on the EP, not Never Fails. I think it may be the Chasing Ghosts, or the other song where you taking on the weightiness of the crown, man. That joke is potent. If y'all haven't checked out that EP, you just need to put and rock with it. By the way, for my fellow Peloton riders, it fits between the 70 and 90 BPMs. Just gonna it works well for the Peloton ride.
That's what's up.
It works.
That's
well.
What's up. Hey, praise God, bro.
It's so good to see you, man. Thanks for coming.
Same, bro.
Let's close.
Absolutely.
Let's close with this. If you had one thing that you wanted to see for the community, for yourself, etc., I guess that's two questions. Let me just leave it with one question. One thing that you're hopeful for, man. One thing that you're mad hopeful for in this season. What
I think I'm hopeful for how amazing many of us are going to come out on the other side of this pandemic. As we're ending the way we started this conversation.
Yeah.
I really do believe that many of us, from the creatives to the writers to the thinkers, even to your 9-to-5ers, have been, are making the most of this time, are figuring it out, like you said, planning now for, okay, we got to be ready next time, or using this time to be creative, using this time to write. So by the time this is over, right. I can't imagine how many books are coming out. There's a lot of babies coming out of this too, but outside of babies, it's a lot of books will be coming out of this. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Albums will be coming out of this. Creativity will come out of this, because necessity is kind of like the mother of all invention, right? The mother of innovation. So this season of need, the season of being stripped, I feel like this is a season where we're being stripped down, where we're being forced to recalibrate, reprioritize. We're being forced to kind of, realign ourselves with God, reconnect with people. I just think that, so by the time this is over, many of us are going to come out like pure gold. You feel me? Yeah. And that's the beauty of this. Even if you're watching and you're struggling, you're one of the people that might be unemployed right now, you're struggling to figure out what the next meal is going to be, or whatever your story is, you can really trust God through this process. If you really trust God through this like, so much of who you need to become happens in this space. You see what I mean? It happens right here. You follow me? The diamond is produced. It comes out of the coal being crushed. The pearl is produced out of the tongue of the oyster being agitated. You see, we get the wine out of the wine, the squeezing, the pressing. That's the space we're in right now. And if we respond to it properly, if we go through this the right way, we'll come out like pure gold. You see? So, man, that's what I'm hopeful for, coming out like pure gold.
Yeah, man. That's what's up, brother. Hey, man, continued blessings on you and your family. Down the for sure. Everything with you and your ministry, brother. Appreciate you, man. Much love.
Thank you, brother. Love to you, bro. Salute to you. Peace.
I know the feeling fades, but you never fail. You never fail. You never fail.